The fundamental design and implementation of Warstriders ruins the fantasy of the precision class of weapons by deviating from faction design trends in a confusing and frustrating manner. The enemy must be given a weaker Achilles heel. This video is not about numbers, nor is it about weapon suggestions. It is about what I believe must be changed about the Warstrider in order for it to align with the overall design of the Automaton faction to maintain the fantasy of precision weaponry. The intent of this video is to provide clear and concise feedback to Arrowheads in hopes that the analysis provided reaches the correct set of ears on the enemy design team. I am aware that playing solo isn't intended by the developers, but I would argue that it helps expose design oversights that would otherwise go unnoticed. The issues I take with Warstriders would also apply to anyone playing with precision weaponry in a group setting. This video will cover a multitude of topics before attempting to substantiate the argument for potential solutions. Some details about the structure of the video. I will first tell you a little bit about me, how I interpret the design of the game from weapon fantasy to faction design philosophy, Warstrider philosophy, as well as issues with weapons when facing Warstriders. After, we will look at some contributing factors from enemy design, do some comparative design, analyzing the questionable trade-offs made by the unit, talk a little bit about the faction again, and then on to conclusions and suggestions. I have approximately 500 hours in Helldivers 1 split between PS4 and PC, as well as 560 hours in Helldivers 2. I am quite a big fan and have visited the Arrowhead studio. But more importantly, I am a lifelong fan of shooter games and I greatly value challenging myself to improve. To give some precise benchmarks, in Kovac Scenario 4, Movement, I am in the 92nd percentile of XY tracking dodge, 93rd percentile of pole long dodge, and 97th percentile for close mid-strafes dodge mirror. I enjoy games with fast movement, precision weapons, and twitch aiming. This greatly influences how I like to play Helldivers 2. My builds, weapons, and playstyle are more often than not focused on these qualities. I typically play solo super Helldives against the Automatons because hitting their weak spots provides an enjoyable challenge not present in the other two factions. My preferred method of gameplay is to be aggressive and reactive, controlling the chaos by scrapping as many bots as possible while still full clearing the mission. As I understand it, the fantasy of precision weapons like marksmen and sniper rifles in Helldivers boils down to the phrase, one shot, one kill. What this means to me is, given proper positioning, ammo, time, and skill, you can take on the world. If you land your shots, you should be able to gun everything down before they have a chance to bring you down. The Automatons, for the most part, deliver on this fantasy. The marksman class of weapons are some of the best to use against the faction, and while not as popular as dedicated anti-tank weapons, like the recoilless rifle and quasar cannon, the anti-material rifle and railgun are solid picks if you have the skill to use them. This is due to the unique design of the bots. The Automaton faction is a primarily ranged force which uses heavily armored units to press through small arms fire and flush Helldivers from cover into open ranged fights. Their strategy is overwhelming defensive positions with sheer numbers and volume of fire. Despite how inaccurate individual units are, being caught out in the open is lethal, and playing around static objects for cover is vital to mission success. Precision weapons like marksmen and sniper rifles are ideal. They allow you to take full advantage of cover, taking high damage shots between the natural rhythm of enemy fire from outside of their effective range. Given the Helldiver is skilled enough, this design allows a player to eliminate bots on approach before being pushed into open combat. This gameplay loop is facilitated by both the composition of enemy units as well as their individual designs. On a macro scale, the faction is composed of light infantry, heavy infantry, vehicles, and is supported by a few key tactical assets. Light infantry are any trooper-type enemies. Heavy infantry include all Devastator, Hulk, and Scout Strider class units. Vehicles are units like dropships, gunships, tank, and factory striders. The Automatons also have a suite of tactical assets and emplacements. Those relevant to the current topic are mortar emplacements and gunship fabricators, and will be discussed later. The Automatons share key weaknesses which can be exploited by Helldivers, notably unarmored automaton heads, heat sinks, and exposed weapon systems. Some generalizations must be made for the sake of argument, but automaton designs will have at minimum one of these weak points which, when targeted, will either neuter their combat effectiveness or be lethal to the unit wielding the weapon system. Certain units make more or less trade-offs depending on their weapon system, size, and level of armor. The heavy infantry class and below, with the exception of reinforced scout striders and hulks, have unarmored heads as their lethal weak point. Enemies that fire laser weaponry employ some form of heatsink which causes natural lapses in their sustained fire, as well as provide a large unarmored or lightly armored weak point. Typically, the more lethal individual shots, the longer the recharge time for the weapon, allowing for repositioning. Automatons such as rocket devastators, gunships, and reinforced scout striders employ ballistic weaponry and have no way to resupply their salvos once they have been spent. In addition to this weakness, their weapons can be targeted to deal significant damage to the unit wielding the weapon. Touching on trade-offs again, hulks, for example, have reinforced armored visors in place of heads, but their increased size and rapid-firing weapon systems require they be fitted with heatsinks. Reinforced scout striders have no head at all, but the attached rocket systems are lethal when targeted. Enemy patrols are composed primarily of slow-moving, heavy, ranged infantry units flanked by light infantry with an occasional vehicle in support, depending on enemy constellations or base layouts. A typical patrol on Super Helldive may include a hulk or pair of reinforced scout striders, 4 devastators, and a handful of troopers. All of these enemies can be reasonably dealt with using light pen other than hulks, which require either 2 AMR shots or 1 from an unsafe railgun. Warstrider philosophy, place, and intent. The Warstrider is a heavily armored vehicle enemy in the same class as tanks, which rather than a focus on lethality, are unique tactical assets for bots to flush Helldivers from entrenched positions, attacking over cover, in addition to providing supportive suppressing fire. It accomplishes these objectives using a flurry of grenades covering a large area in twin fusion laser cannons, which can easily consecutively ragdoll Helldivers left out in the open. The Automatons have a multitude of units which are specifically designed to mitigate the effectiveness of cover. They use artillery and airborne attacks from emplacements, barrager tanks, and gunships respectively. However, Warstriders accomplish this task more effectively due to a combination of low projectile travel time and high volume of fire without a reliance on special structures. They can be found defending objectives, POIs, in patrols, or deployed by dropships. Weapon fantasy and performance are largely dependent on enemy design. Warstriders simply do not cooperate with precision weapon fantasy due to their lack of a suitable target for these weapons, diverging from conventional automaton design. This alone wouldn't necessarily be an issue. Factory Striders are largely immune to precision weapons as well. However, a key difference is in both the ease of disarming Factory Striders coupled with the relative infrequency and lethargic movements. This makes them manageable with proper strategy, cover, and distance. When comparing the performance of precision weaponry against Warstriders, the resilience of the unit, volume they appear in, coupled with the time and resource investment to either kill or disarm them are disproportionate to the difficulty and ammo investment of hitting said shots. Compare a Warstrider patrol to a typical one. Warstriders are significantly more tanky and disruptive than hulks, requiring far more shots to put down while also being more difficult to deal with. Contributing factors. Enemy design. They lack in meaningful non-anti-tank weak points, they have no head, no heat sinks, and their weapons are not lethal when targeted. The weak points it does have are far more durable than any other enemy. They have an unlimited number of salvos, meaning attrition is not a valid tactic, despite them using ballistic weapons, which breaks an enemy design trend. If Warstriders naturally ran out of grenades, it would be more feasible to take out their cannons to neuter them. I believe the enemy covers its own weaknesses far too effectively by serving a dual role of suppressing and mortar fire. It actively counters cover with high volume carpet bombing while also having strong suppressing fire options which can make it difficult or impossible to escape subsequent volleys. Additionally, one of the best positions to avoid fire from Warstriders is from close range, a weakness which is mitigated by its stomp attack that ragdolls Helldivers. Other sources of frustration not directly related to the design of the enemy are that there is no indication that the mission you're diving into will have Warstriders, making it impossible to make an informed decision on support weapon. They cause a difficulty spike which only exists if you're unfortunate enough to not take a dedicated anti-tank weapon. This leads to frustration due to limited counterplay. These issues are exacerbated by the fact that it spawns at an absurd rate, replacing hulks on certain seeds. The unit becomes exponentially harder to deal with in groups due to staggered fire easily consecutively ragdolling Helldivers. Unlike other automaton units, it is unclear exactly what trade-offs the Warstrider is making to support its impressive firepower. I will use pros and cons lists from the automaton perspective to compare units which seek to serve the role of limiting the effectiveness of cover. As you can see, the Warstrider has a far greater number of advantages with far fewer weaknesses to its contemporaries. Take this into mind when we compare it to hulks, a unit which the Warstrider commonly replaces. To reiterate, I believe the primary issue with Warstriders is their refusal to cooperate with the fantasy of precision weaponry as the rest of the automatons do. The resilience of the unit, the volume they appear in, coupled with the time and resource investment to either kill or disarm them are disproportionate to the difficulty and ammo investment of hitting said shots. Their current design brings precision support weapons from a fun pick to a miserable experience at random beyond player control. This makes the unit quite frustrating to fight unless the Helldiver brings a dedicated anti-tank support weapon. I would argue that Warstriders could very easily be tweaked to align better with the fantasy of precision weaponry without significantly impacting the performance of other stratagems against them or neutering how menacing the enemy is. I don't believe the primary issue is the firepower of the Warstrider, but rather the uniform high level of tankiness. To solve the issue, its resilience should be brought more in line with that of hulks, given how frequently they spawn. To be cautious and not over-nerf the enemy, as was done to gunships, I have collected examples of changes I would and wouldn't want to see. Examples of changes I would want to see, in order of most to least preferred, would be to give the Warstrider a head or visor-like weak point like those found on hulks, which can be targeted for a lethal blow. Other feasible changes would be to lower the overall health pull of the hip joint weak point, allowing it to be destroyed with a similar number of shots or overcharge as a hulk would require to the visor. Reduce the health and durability of its weapon systems. Increase the amount of damage destroying the weapon systems deals to the main health of the unit. Or to make the red dot on the main torso a weak point similar to Factory Strider's heads. Changes I wouldn't want to see would be anything which makes the unit less unique, menacing, and capable of fulfilling its role in the automaton forces. I also believe any changes to the following would trivialize it in group play. This would be a reduced spawn rate, reduced armor values, reduced effectiveness of onboard weapons, or reduced volume or rate of fire. The enemy is actually well balanced for group play, as more likely than not, someone is running multiple forms of dedicated anti-tank. As stated in the introduction, I hope this video reaches the enemy design team at Arrowhead. If I was successful, I want to thank you for watching to the end and to let you know that I truly appreciate all the work that goes into maintaining this game. If you're not someone at Arrowhead and just watch this in curiosity, please like and share to begin a discussion to increase the odds of getting the feedback through. If you disagree, I would like to know why. This has been Polypay, thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.